Hi, people. As the shadows of betrayal and survival grow darker, the Dutton family faces their most harrowing challenge yet. With enemies closing in from all sides, and the land they've fought so hard to protect hanging in the balance, alliances will shatter, and loyalties will be tested. In the untamed wilderness of 1923, where every decision carries life or death consequences, one wrong move could destroy everything they've built. Will the Duttons rise stronger, or will the weight of their legacy crush them forever? In the ever-shifting landscape of ambition and power, Whitfield takes a bold step forward, rallying allies and resources for his latest business venture. With a vision as grand as the untamed frontier itself, he seeks to carve out a new empire, but not without facing fierce opposition. As whispers of his plans spread through the town, tensions rise, and old rivalries resurface. Will Whitfield's cunning and determination be enough to secure his place among the titans of industry? Or will the challenges of a ruthless world prove too great to overcome? In a game where every move counts, the stakes have never been higher. The main theme of Whitfield garners support for his new business venture revolves around ambition, power, and the cost of success. It explores the complexities of building alliances, navigating rivalries, and the moral compromises often required to achieve greatness. The story delves into the tension between progress and integrity, highlighting how ambition can both inspire and corrupt. As Whitfield strives to secure his place in a competitive world, the narrative examines the sacrifices made in the pursuit of power and the impact of his actions on those around him. Ultimately, it raises the question, how far is too far when chasing a dream? The town of Redwood Creek was abuzz with whispers as Whitfield, a shrewd and ambitious entrepreneur, unveiled his latest venture, a sprawling railroad project that promised to connect the isolated town to the booming cities of the West. For years, Redwood Creek had been a forgotten dot on the map, but Whitfield saw potential where others saw only dust and despair. His vision was grand, a railroad that would bring wealth, trade, and opportunity to the struggling community. But such a dream required more than just steel and sweat. It needed allies, investors, and the unwavering support of the townsfolk. Whitfield began his campaign with charm and calculated precision. He hosted a lavish gathering at the town hall, inviting local landowners, merchants, and even his rivals. With a charismatic speech, he painted a picture of a prosperous future, one where Redwood Creek would thrive as a hub of commerce and industry. His words stirred hope in the hearts of many, and soon, pledges of support began to pour in. However, not everyone was convinced. Among the skeptics was Clara Hartman, a fiercely independent rancher, whose land lay directly in the path of the proposed railroad. Clara saw Whitfield's venture not as a boon, but as a threat, a means to exploit the town's resources for his own gain. She rallied a small but determined group of dissenters, vowing to protect their homes and livelihoods from what she called Whitfield's greed. As tensions mounted, Whitfield found himself navigating a web of alliances and betrayals. He struck deals with powerful figures, offering shares in the railroad in exchange for their backing. He even managed to sway some of Clara's allies with promises of wealth and influence. Yet, with every step forward, the stakes grew higher. The town became divided, with families and friendships strained by the weight of their choices. In a dramatic turn of events, Clara uncovered evidence of Whitfield's underhanded tactics, bribes, forged documents, and secret agreements that threatened to undermine the very foundation of his venture. She confronted him publicly, igniting a fierce debate that forced the townsfolk to question their loyalties. Whitfield, ever the strategist, countered with a bold move. He offered Clara a seat on the railroad's board, promising her a voice in shaping its future. The offer was a gamble, but it worked. Claire, torn between her principles and the potential to protect her community from within, reluctantly accepted. The railroad project moved forward, but not without scars. Whitfield had secured his support, but at a cost: his reputation, his relationships, and the trust of those he sought to lead. As the first tracks were laid, Whitfield stood at the edge of the construction site, watching the sun set over the horizon. He had achieved his dream, but the price of success weighed heavily on his shoulders. The story of Whitfield's venture became a cautionary tale, a reminder that ambition, no matter how noble, comes with consequences. And in the end, the true measure of success lies not in what is gained, but in what is sacrificed along the way. The dusty streets of Fort Worth buzzed with the usual chaos of a frontier town saloon, doors swinging, horses neighing, and the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer. Spencer Dutton, a man of few words but quick reflexes, found himself in the middle of it all. Fresh off a long journey, he had come to Fort Worth to resupply and regroup before heading back to the Dutton ranch. But trouble had a way of finding Spencer, even when he wasn't looking for it. It started in the saloon. Spencer, nursing a whiskey at the bar, overheard a heated argument between a group of cowboys and a local merchant. The cowboys, clearly drunk and looking for trouble, accused the merchant of shortchanging them on a recent deal. Words turned to shoves, and before long, the saloon erupted into a brawl. Spencer, trying to stay out of it, was drawn into the fray when one of the cowboys mistook him for the merchant's ally. With the precision of a seasoned fighter, Spencer disarmed the cowboy and pinned him to the ground. But before he could explain himself, the sheriff and his deputies burst through the doors, guns drawn. The sheriff, a grizzled man with a no-nonsense demeanor, took one look at the chaos and immediately singled out Spencer as the instigator. "You've got a lot of nerve causing trouble in my town," the sheriff growled, hand resting on his holster. Spencer, calm but wary, raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I wasn't looking for trouble, Sheriff. Just defending myself." The cowboys, eager to shift the blame, backed up the sheriff's version of events, painting Spencer as the aggressor. With little evidence to prove his innocence, Spencer found himself thrown into the town's jail cell, his weapons confiscated, and his freedom hanging by a thread. As the hours passed, Spencer's frustration grew. He knew he couldn't afford to waste time locked up, not with the Dutton family counting on him. Using his wits and a bit of ingenuity, he managed to convince one of the deputies to send a message to a local ally, a retired lawman who owed Spencer a favor. By nightfall, the retired lawman arrived at the jail, vouching for Spencer's character and recounting his past deeds that had saved countless lives. Reluctantly, the sheriff agreed to release Spencer, but not without a warning. "Stay out of trouble, Dutton. Next time, you won't be so lucky." Spencer left Fort Worth with a renewed sense of urgency. The run-in with the sheriff was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in every corner of the frontier, but it also reinforced his determination to protect his family and their legacy, no matter the cost. As he rode out of town, the sun dipping below the horizon, Spencer couldn't shake the feeling that his journey was far from over and that greater challenges lay ahead. The moon hung high over Fort Worth as Spencer mounted his horse, the cool night air a sharp contrast to the heat of the day's chaos. His release from the jail cell had come at a cost, not just the favor he'd called in, but the precious time he'd lost. The Dutton Ranch was still miles away, and every moment delayed meant more danger for his family. As he rode out of town, Spencer couldn't shake the sheriff's warning, "Stay out of trouble, Dutton. Next time, you won't be so lucky." It wasn't the threat that lingered in his mind, but the weight of responsibility. The Duttons were no strangers to adversity, and Spencer knew that his actions, even in self-defense, could have consequences far beyond himself. The road ahead was dark, the path lit only by the faint glow of the stars. Spencer's thoughts turned to his family, his brother John, struggling to hold the ranch together, his sister Kara, fierce and unyielding in her loyalty, and the land itself, a legacy that had been fought for with blood and sacrifice. He couldn't afford another misstep. Just as he reached the edge of town, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking his path. It was one of the cowboys from the saloon, his face bruised, but his eyes burning with anger. He held a revolver, its barrel gleaming in the moonlight. "You think you can just walk away after what you did?" The cowboy snarled. Spencer sighed, his hand instinctively moving toward his own holster, before remembering his weapons had been confiscated. He dismounted slowly, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. "I don't want any more trouble," he said, his voice steady. "Walk away, and we'll forget this ever happened." The cowboy hesitated, his grip on the revolver tightening. For a moment, it seemed as though the night would end in bloodshed. But then, from the darkness, a voice rang out, a familiar voice. "That's enough." It was the retired lawman who had vouched for Spencer earlier. He stepped into the light, his own gun drawn and aimed at the cowboy. "You've had your fun," the lawman said. "Now put the gun down before you do something you'll regret." The cowboy glanced between Spencer and the lawman, his bravado faltering. With a muttered curse, he lowered his weapon and slunk back into the shadows. Spencer nodded to the lawman, a silent acknowledgement of the debt he now owed. "I owe you one," he said. The lawman shook his head. "Just get out of here, Dutton, and try to stay out of trouble." As Spencer rode into the night, the weight of the day's events settled over him. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but he also knew he couldn't face it alone. The Duttons were stronger together, and it was time to return to the ranch to his family. The stars above seemed to guide him as he pressed on, the horizon slowly lightening with the first hints of dawn. Spencer Dutton was a man of few words, but his resolve was unshakable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on, for the sake of his family and the legacy they had built. And as the sun rose over the plains, Spencer rode on, a lone figure against the vast expanse of the frontier, ready to fight for what mattered most. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.